Alright, we have more to do. So I went through my email because so far what we've been doing is just the stuff that I personally made notes of that were issues. I wanted to see if there were any other issues that I haven't yet handled in my email, in my inbox, that I can handle reasonably today. And the one I came up with that we didn't already have here was saving removable media. So we're going to try both of these right now. Okay, let's work on pasting long comments at the top of code files. So to make this work, first I'm going to have to temporarily take out the new file . Okay. Problem is that worked. Yes. Yes. Let's try a few things here. So maybe a comment that looks like this will trigger it. Let me copy that first. Yeah, I can't repro it, so I can't do it. This is one of my own bugs, so I'm gonna just put this under long-term bug. Repro needed. Okay, and now we're going to try to look at this. Give me a second, I'm going to go get a jump drive and we're going to see if we can do this. Alright. Okay, we have a jump drive. Let me try to stick it in there. Okay. I'm going to try to save a file onto E. Let's see if I can make a directory. I'm going to call this 4coder test. Okay, that worked. See. I don't know anything else I can do to make Hello World smaller. I think that's as small as it gets. Yeah, that works. So again, no repro. I'll put this into long-term repro needed. Okay. So it turns out that's as much as I can do for these bugs today. So I'm going to do a quick git update now. Cleanup and bug fixes. Alright, let's get all these docs done. Once all these docs are done, I can't quite ship because I still haven't updated the platform layers for Mac and Linux since I started this build. And actually, that's not true. I updated the Mac platform layer a couple nights ago because I decided to start doing something on my Mac with 4coder, and then I wanted to update to the newest version because I was sick of running 4.0.27 or whatever I had on there. So I was updating and realized I couldn't build because I hadn't updated the platform layer code yet. So I did most of that, and I think it works. But the Linux one I still need to visit, and I need to revisit the Mac one to make sure it's ready. So there's some stuff I can't do on stream that's not on my stream to-do list here. But once all this documentation is done, there's nothing left for me to stream. And so if we get to the end of today and I've done everything that I have for streaming, I might just ship right away, or I might spend Saturday streaming something other than 4coder, maybe using 4coder for another purpose besides building more 4coder stuff, maybe do some fun stuff and test it out and then release on Sunday. I'll take a poll on Twitter later to find out what we're going to do, but one way or the other, we're going to finish this stuff first. A handle to the visual to be modified by this call. Let's see, type. The type of visual effect this marker visual will create. Color. Set the color aspect of the effect. Exact meaning depends on the type. Aspect of the effect. Exact meaning depends on the type. This feature is not yet implemented, and the field should always be 0. Returns non-zero on success, or 0 on failure, and 0 on failure. Why would I say or 0? There we go. For whatever applies a visual effect to all markers in the attached marker object, that this marker visual is configured to effect. Not sure what to say about it, really. It's kind of self-explanatory. If anyone ever suggests better information, what I should put on it, I will, but this call fails when visual is not a handle to a valid, when visual does not refer to a valid marker visual. The new take rule for the marker visual. This one does deserve some more docs. Marker visuals have take rules so that they do not necessarily affect every marker in the marker object they were created to visualize. Let's see. Is that take rule? The take rule can affect the start of the run of markers, the total number of markers, and the stride and the stride of the markers taken by this visual when applying its effect. Taken should not be thought of as reserving a marker. The word take should not be thought of as reserving a marker to the particular marker visual. Multiple visuals may add effects to a single marker. Take the docs for marker visual take rule for specifics about how the take rule can be configured. Doc C marker visual take rule. The new priority level for this marker visual doc. Multiple visuals affecting the same position, whether they are on the same marker object or different marker objects, are sorted by their priority level so that higher priority levels are displayed when they are in conflict with lower priority levels. Some effects have implicit priorities over other effects, which does not take priority level into account. Other effects may occur in the same position without being considered in conflict. See the documentation for each effect to see for more information about which effects about these relationships. Alright, so that gives us that, and that. Let's get view key in here. Whoops. The new value for the marker visual of the marker visuals key view keying View keying allows a marker visual to declare that it only appears in one view. For instance, the marker which if a buffer is opened in two views side by side, and each view has its own cursor position. This can be used to make sure that the cursor for one view does not appear in the other view. I know I have this somewhere, but I don't remember where. Marker visual set view key. Ah, yes, the highlights for the iSearch stuff. Of course. Alright, there's 4 of these. How long does that take? 20 minutes? Ah. Alright. Whoops. I'm going to take a shortest possible break. I won't shut the stream down. I will be right back to continue this stuff. Alright, I am back. Alright. This should say the object. Excuse me. The number of marker visuals that are currently attached to the given object. Just realize that this is not actually fully done. The data has an owner object, and we want to track that thing down. So the owner object is like dynamic workspace get pointer. Workspace max U32. So we get the pointer for this object, and we then say managed object standard header. If the header type, well, this is more like assert that the header type equals dynamic workspace. No, that's not right. That's where it is. Then we get one of these. Variables. Yeah, we need to remove it from this one. And then we need to set markers visual count minus equals 1. All right. If the object handle does not refer to a valid marker object, then this call returns 0. Just want to check that everything works reasonably still. Okay, yep. Don't think I added any problems. Manage markers, get attached visuals. Pushes an array onto part. The arena to be used to allocate the returned array. And returns the pointer to its base. Containing the marker, the handle to every marker visual attached to this object. If the object does not refer to a valid marker object, or there is not enough space in the part to allocate the array, then a null pointer is returned. Managed object, get item size. The handle to the managed object to be queried returns the size of a single item in the managed object. Item size is multiplied by the indices in store and load calls, and it is expected that it is multiplied by item count to discover size in bytes. Total memory size of the managed object. If object does not refer to a valid managed object, this call returns 0. The count of items in the managed object. The size of the returns the number of items this object stores. This number this count is used to range check the indices in store and load calls. If object does not refer to a valid managed object, this call returns 0. returns the type of the managed object as C managed object type for the enumeration of possible values and their special meanings. If the object does not refer to a valid managed object, this call returns 0. Alright, let's see. Returns the managed scope in which this object is allocated. A handle to the managed scope in which this object is allocated, or 0 if object does not refer to a valid managed object. Returns non-zero on success and 0 on failure. This call fails when object does not refer to a valid managed object. Doc. Permanently freeze the specified object. Not only does this free up the memory this object had allocated, but it also triggers cleanup for some types of managed objects. C managed object type for information about, for instance, after markers are freed, any visual effects from the markers are removed as well. C marker object type or managed object type for more information about how each type does its cleanup. thinking through something weird right now. It's not even a feature I'm going to be adding in this build, but there's one type of managed object I wanted to add that I couldn't, which was the linked list node object, which would be great for doing things like keeping buffers in order in a per view way, so that I don't just have one buffer order but one for each view, so that the mental model becomes easy about which buffer you will pop down to if you treat it like a stack of papers. And then if you view something, it goes to the top, or if it wasn't already in the stack, it gets put on top of the stack, and then when you pop it, it's out of the stack, right? And you go pop these things off. You could even imagine they get popped off into a different list that you can then push back on if you don't put something else here first, like, there's sort of we flip a page up and then we put a different page on, and then we flip a page down and flip it up again. Like, there's a mental model of how these things are sorted that we don't really preserve in this current version of 4coder. If it happens per view, it happens for all of 4coder, but that doesn't map to what people usually expect, I've found. And the nodes would make this easier, but the only reason I haven't put nodes in is because I kind of insist on there being a way to bulk free them. And I couldn't think of an easy way to do it, and I didn't really have time to do more complicated architecture stuff. So my brain is just sitting here wondering about that still, like, what was the way to do it? What is the way to structure an order sort of preserving list where the cleanup of a particular node pulls it out of the list, the cleanup of it in bulk is also pulls it out of the list somehow, but not in a way that generates O of n work where n is the number of nodes that depended on that buffer, right? If I clear a buffer which has 100 nodes in it, I don't want it to then, or if I clear a scope that has 100 nodes in it, I don't want it to then go do 100 node removals when for everything else I've got it down to like it does 2 frees to get rid of all of the objects allocated, because they're all allocated inside this thing. The problem is, how do you make a thing where by simply erasing it, it pulls itself out of the ordering? I haven't figured it out yet. Once I can do that, I will use it for priority levels too. Don't know. This call fails when object does not refer to a valid managed object, and when the range of indices to be rewritten overflows the item count, the range 0 to item count for this managed object. The first index of the range in the managed object buffer to be stored. Managed object indices are 0 based. param count, the number of items in the managed objects buffer to be stored. All managed objects, in addition to whatever special behaviors they have, can accept memory stores and loads. Have a memory buffer that can receive stores and store and loads, that can accept store and load data. The buffers are organized in two items, and the indices of stores and loads are item level indices, not byte level indices. Storing data into a managed object. The meaning of storing and loading data does not necessarily always load data chunks. This storage can have special properties in certain managed object types. For instance, marker objects. The data stored in marker objects can be edited by the core whenever their specific buffer is edited. Returns non-zero on success and 0 on failure. This call fails when object does not refer to a valid managed object and when the range of indices to written overflows the maximum, the range of this. All managed objects, in addition to whatever special behaviors they have the ability to store and load data. This storage can have special properties in certain managed object types. For instance, the data stored in marker object. This call stores the data pointed to by mem into the range of items starting at first index and going until plus count minus 1 plus count. To the item range specified by first index and count. Loads the data from the item range specified and count into mem out. A pointer to the data to be stored. It is expected that the size of this memory is item size times count. Item size can be queried with managed object get item size. A pointer to the memory where loaded data will be written. The maximum range of this, the range of the managed object can be queried with managed object get item count. These both want docc. Manage object get item count, get item size. Get theme count. Returns the number of loaded themes. Loaded by the core that are currently exist in the core. Arena. The arena in which will be used to allocate the returned string. The index of the theme to load, to get to query. Index 0 always refers to the active theme. All other indices refer to the copies of themes On success, this call returns a string allocated on arena that is the name of the queried theme. On failure, a null string is returned. This call fails when the index is out, when index is not less than the total number of themes, and when there is not enough space in arena to allocate the name. The index of the theme to which the active theme will be set. To copy the index parameter specifies the index of the theme to begin using. Returns non-zero on success and 0 on failure. This call fails when index is not less than the total number of themes. Alright, now we want to track down the things in here we haven't named yet. Buffer kill result. An enumeration a status enumeration returned by, what is it returned by? Kill buffer. This call returns buffer kill result killed if the call successfully kills the buffer. Other kill results, see the buffer was successfully killed. The buffer was not killed because it was dirty. The specified buffer does not exist. This can be overridden with the flag buffer kill always kill. Often, hey there, welcome to the stream. Let's see. This result can be followed up by launching a sure to kill dialog. But that is entirely optional, and any other unkillable buffers are the buffers that the core uses that must be open for the core's purposes. Messages is unkillable because it is tied to, it receives the output core needs to dump its results always writes to it, and scratch is unkillable so that there is always a normal editable buffer available an array of ranges. It has no special how do I want to put this? I want to basically say type values for managed objects. Oh. Okay, I'm back. So, um, types of managed objects. This type value indicates an invalid object handle that the specified object for an operation is not a valid managed object. A handle for a managed object can go bad when its scope is cleared or when it is freed. So it is possible to keep handles around and check them to store handles and check them for validity on use. However, all APIs do the necessary checks on their parameters and return appropriate failure results even on bad handles. The memory object is used for simple, straightforward memory. These objects have no special cleanup, no extra operations. Their memory storage is never touched by the core. And on allocation, A marker object is used to place markers into buffers that move along with the text upon which they are placed. A marker object must live in marker object has a specific buffer to which it is attached, and must be allocated in a scope dependent upon the lifetime of that buffer. Additionally, marker objects always use the marker type for their items. And their item size is always size of marker. When a marker object is freed, all of the marker visuals attached to it are also freed back into the same scope. And the buffer no longer adjusts the markers when edits occur. A handle to a managed scope. A managed scope contains variables and objects all of which can be freed and reset in bulk operations. Many managed scopes are created and destroyed by the core to track the lifetime of entities like buffers and views. Because a managed scope contains its own copy of the managed variables, managed scopes can also be used as a keying mechanism to store and retrieve information, special information related to entities like buffers and views. An ID referring to a managed variable. Managed variables are created globally for the entire core, but each managed scope has its own set of values for the managed variables. Managed variables are created via a unique string attempting to create the same variable with the same name as an existing variable fails. When naming variables, it is recommended that you place a module name to distinguish your variables, followed by a period and then a descriptive variable name. Your variables from variables written by other 4coder users that might someday need to work together in the same configuration. Example. The variable's ID is used to set and get the value from scopes. A handle to a managed object. Managed objects have a wide range of various special uses. All managed objects share the property of being tied to a manage scope so that they are cleaned up and freed with that scope's when that scope's contents are cleared, or when the scope is destroyed. And they share the common characteristic of being able of supporting store and load operations to interact for whatever special is attached to a marker object. It is freed if the marker object is freed or when it is specifically destroyed. Marker visuals can be placed on a single marker object. Let's see. Alright, we're an hour and 40 minutes into this process now. This is the long haul, getting through all the documentation. The type, the effect applied by a marker, enumeration of visual effects that a marker visual can create. No visual effect. It is as if the marker, with this type, it is as if the marker visual does not exist. Character blocks. So character blocks would be the affected markers, the markers effect applies a block all effects have a color aspect and text color aspect. Exact meaning of these aspects depends upon the effects type. The color of the block behind the character. The color aspect determines the color of the block behind the character. The text color aspect determines the color of the character. Shows a rectangle outline of background of each affected character. Shows a rectangle outline around the affected character. single pixel line on the left side of each affected character. This is rendered on top of any block or range highlight. This is rendered on top of any This is a highlight style effect. This is a wireframe style effect. Highlight style effect and any wireframe style effect. This is an I-bar style effect. Hey, Jeremiah, welcome. How's life? Have I been? I've been alright. Just getting this new 4coder build out it's been taking longer and longer, and I'm kind of running out of time because, I mean, you know, it's like the longer it goes on, the more anticipation there is for it, and so the more I feel rushed to get it out sooner. And yet, at the same time, the bigger it's getting all the time. So I'm really glad to get it out of the way because I haven't had like a good relaxation. It feels like 4 or 5 weeks, and so I'm ready to get this thing out and then take a few weeks to um, relax. Do something that's a little bit more brain candy. I've got a bunch of cool ideas for little game demos I want to try to build, or something. There's all kinds of different projects in my head that I haven't been able to explore for a while, and I start to go a little bit crazy if I haven't explored down a random avenue in a long time. Shows a block around the background of each marked character. Each character between the range pairs. I want to simplify this in a few ways. So we're going to say there are several effect styles. They are rendered in the order. Two effect styles never conflict with one another if each can be applied to each effect. Each style can be applied to each character. If two effects of the same style are applied to the same character, then the effect with the higher priority then the effect with the higher priority is rendered and the lower priority effect is ignored. Some effects of the same style override other effects of the same style regardless. That's what I'll do. The render order for effects is highlight style, wireframe style, I-bar style. Line-oriented highlight style effects are always overridden by character-oriented highlight style effects. regardless of relative priority order levels. Range-based single-marked effects use each marker to specify a single point at which an effect is applied. Range-marked effects take pairs of markers, take subsequent or take pairs of markers to specify a left inclusive, right exclusive range of to effect. In range marked effects, two effects with the same priority, two conflicting effects with the same priority level are resolved by preferring, are further resolved by preferring the effect with the more recent, with the higher index starting position. This means that if range A completely contains range B and they have the same priority level, then range B will be visible and range A will be visible wherever range B is not. Character-oriented. This is a character-oriented highlight style single marked effect. Character-oriented wireframe style. Let's see. Effects are character-oriented, meaning they have an effect on the individual character / characters. That the markers specify. Other effects are line-oriented, meaning that they affect the entire line on which their markers are placed. Of the same style. Okay. single marked effect. This is a character-oriented highlight style range marked effect. Shows a block around the background of the entire line. On each line within the range. There we go. That's enough information to fully figure out the ordering of all these things and to figure out how the marking of each one works and all the priority stuff. Pretty good. Okay, happy with that. There's just types. I haven't even done symbolic color yet. I actually have to go back and do that too. This color, doc C, this field can also accept symbolic colors, which are colors which are values and special values less than small enough that their alpha channels would be 0 as color codes, as 32-bit color codes. They are valid symbolic color values, are interpreted into 32-bit colors have special rules for evaluation. Doc. Each effect type has special uses color, and text color aspects differently. These aspects can be specified as 32-bit colors or as symbolic colors, which are special values small enough that their alpha channels would be 0 as 32-bit color codes. Valid symbolic have rules for evaluation, and sometimes their meaning depends on the effect type too. Alright. Alright, symbolic color. How do I describe this? Special codes that can be used as the color aspects of marker visual effects. These special codes have are for convenience and in some cases apply rules, create otherwise unavailable special, and in some cases effects that could not be expressed as 32-bit colors. Does not when default is used, the as a color aspect, for text, the text is unchanged from its normal, from the coloring the core would apply to it. Since unhighlighted, the color aspect, the color for all effects, the default value of the default value of the color aspect for all effects is the same as transparent. When default is when transparent is used, the aspect is set to look transparent. Transparent always sets the color of the aspect to be reserved, since all symbolic color codes have their alpha channel set to 0. This code is reserved to get the effect one would get for using a transparent 32-bit color. This flag, bit-ord with a stag a style tag will be re-evaluated at render time by looking up to the color of the specific style tag in the currently active palette. The macro symbolic color from palette stag code applies the bit or. To stag code. For example, symbolic color from palette stag, let's see. Will always evaluate to the color of the current cursor. Note that this evaluation happens at render time, so that if the palette changes, the highlight, the evaluated color will also change. Okay. The take rule of a marker visual specifies how to iterate the markers in the marker object. The markers are when applying the visual effect. For range marked effects, which use a pair of markers to specify a left inclusive, right exclusive range, it is not necessary that two markers be adjacent in the marker object when they are taken, but the first taken marker is paired to the second taken marker, the third to the fourth, etc., regardless of any gaps between the consecutively taken markers. The index of the first, if the take rule overflows the marker's object, the effect is still applied, but the iteration is cut short before as soon as it would overflow. Therefore, setting maximum number of markers to an I'm going to save this for later. Are taken at each step. Each markers taken in the same step have consecutive indices. If the first marker taken has index 0 and the take count per step equals 2, then the second marker taken will have index equals 1. Whoops. The stride between each step. However many markers are taken from the start of a step, take count per step markers after taking take count per step markers from the current step, the iteration advances to the next step, counting from the start of the current step. So if 2 markers are taken per step and the stride is 3, then the pattern of taken markers will be where is a taken marker. If this is less than take count per step, the core automatically adjusts it to be at least equal to okay. The doc. The maximum number of markers to be taken during iteration. Since overflow does not cause the visual effect to fail and is prevented internally, if you do not, this field can be set to max of int32 of a signed 32-bit integer, and will take as many markers as possible until it hits the end. If the max count is reached mid-step, the iteration stops without completing the step. A helper enumeration for common priority levels. Although any integer unsigned integer is a valid priority level. By convention, the following five levels establish a standard convention. Are used to establish a standard convention. The highest priority is given to effects immediately at the cursor and mark or highlighted range. Default priority is given to passive temporary actively attached effects like compilation error line passive effects like scope highlighting go to lowest priority. Intermediate priority. This system is considered temporary until a module to enable cooperation between modules. Alright, we're really getting close. I need to change up my music though. Okay, let's see what we got here. An enumeration of the types of UI widget items that can be placed in a UI. Oh, I'm not done. An option is a rectangle with a margin that can be highlighted, a main string, and a secondary string in default text color and a secondary string in pop2 color. On a single line, centered vertically in the item. A text field is a rectangle with a query string in pop1 color and a main string in default text color. Item rectangle. Centered vertically in the item rectangle. A color theme is a rectangle that ignores the active color scheme palette and previews a specified color palette with a specified string on the first line. This item is particularly meant for creating the color theme lister, but could be repurposed. Can technically be used for anything. But could be reused for anything. However, there is no way to remove all the sample text in the widget. Added alongside the main string. Okay. An enumeration of the levels of activation and item in the that can be placed on an item in a UI. This can affect the appearance of some widgets. No activation. No, these don't really need docs. It's clear what they mean. An enumeration of the coordinate systems in which an item's rectangle can be specified. Changing the coordinate system this is not always a convenience feature, as it is sometimes possible that means after scrolling the widgets do not necessarily need to be updated. Thus saving extra work. The scrolled coordinate system it is affected by the scroll of the view. Items if the scroll value is at 100 and an item is placed with a vertical range from 50 to 90, the item is not visible. The view coordinate system all coordinate systems are in pixels with descending Y and rightward X. With Y increasing downward and when the scroll value is at 0, this coordinate system aligns with the view relative coordinate system. Is only affected by the screen coordinates of the view. 0, 0 is always the top left corner of the view. Of the space inside the view margin. We're almost done. each UI item in a composited UI specifies a single widget. A UI item is essentially a single widget on the data to specify a single widget. The exact appearance and qualities of a UI of a widget are determined by the item's type. All items can have an attached user data pointer. to associate the item back to whatever user space data or object is needed for interacting with the item. Wraps a UI item in a doubly linked list node. A zero-ended doubly linked list doubly linked lists an array of UI items and a set of bounding boxes that reads a string, replaces or rewrites a string with escape sequences into a string for instance, in particular, a double backslash is replaced with a single backslash, n We're not actually doing this one. And there we go. So that's it. So I think I'm going to be done for tonight. I might get some more streaming in tomorrow. I'm going to run some polls to see what people want to watch me do and what people don't want to watch me do. If they'd rather see 4coder out tomorrow or not, or Sunday. But yeah, I think that's it. Most of the work is done. Now it's going to be kind of just a day of wrangling some platform layer stuff and, you know, just organizing all the shit I have to do when I ship a build. So I think it'll be out soon, people. Thanks for hanging out. See you guys later.